We, a Squawking Dead, a podcast, pulverizing episodes of the Walking Dead universe. You know, sometimes we give you news, sometimes we make you laugh, but most times we go deep. And I'm here with everybody here in the chat, Sharon, D, and Lisa. Obviously, in front of your faces is Cosmo Mom 09, Rachel Burt, and I'm your host, David Cameo. How are you doing? It's a beautiful day here in New York City. I have my black and white cookie. Life is good indoors, always. And forever. As we lock down, the country prepares to lock down again. Oh my God. Yeah, little
So it's
current
not just
events.
Michigan, huh?
It's going to be 50 states, unfortunately.
Yep, we just got the order the other day, don't leave the house if you don't need to. All the kids are going back to remote learning. And I'm like, yeah, this is why I signed up for virtual right from the get-go, because I knew if the kids went back to school, it's only a matter of time before they get sent back home.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of like back in April. Today we're going to be talking about The Walking Dead World Beyond's 7th episode. Titled Truth or Dare. This is not the ASMR episode you asked for. That was last episode, in case you missed it.
Yeah, for me, I feel like this was probably one of the most heavy episodes in the Walking Dead universe. And I only say that because of what we see Huck going through, right? We finally see, the beginning days of the apocalypse and how at least this branch of the military handled it, right? We see the first orders come in, we see the second set of orders come in, and this is our first glimpse inside any sort of military to let us know what they were thinking or what they were ordered. And so for that reason, this was really heavy for me to kind of swallow and see our military supposed to be killing civilians, right?
Right. By the end of it.
By the end of the episode, I am heartbroken for Huck. I feel heavier at the end of this episode knowing what she's having to carry with her all of this time, 10 years, right?
Right.
And I see this beautiful but also sad and scary connection between her and Hope, right? Because they are having to carry these burdens. I hope that they can continue to be there for each other, because this is not going to be easy for Hope at all.
Would you say also that seeing Huck's experience firsthand, having it actually connect a little bit more for you, I think, does that make you appreciate Hope's situation a little bit more? It puts it a little bit more into perspective, a little.
I mean, I definitely was sympathetic for what she had to go through. I mean, especially being such a young child, doing what she did. I liked that we got to see basically the lesson of Huck's flashbacks were doing what needs to be done, even if it's a bad choice, right? Bad choices for good reasons type of thing. And we got to see that play out with Hope and Walter, of all people, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, like that culminating in the end of her flashback, essentially, right? More or less.
The gentleman with his gun to Hope's head, his name is Walter.
Walter, yeah.
Walter's just an unfortunate name, apparently, in this universe.
Right, Walters get killed.
Don't want to be a Walter. But we got to see that, right? We got to see Huck go into this role. You know what I mean? And Hope got to see all of it firsthand. And then she saw, Huck saved me. She did what she had to do to save her. Similarly
to what she did for the civilians in whatever facility they were at. Or not facility, but the access tunnels or wherever they were. I don't know if I feel the same way as you about the most heavy episode of the Walking Dead universe. Only because I feel if I make that statement, I have to really check my records in my filing cabinet of every single heavy, horrible thing. And then stack that against everything else. But let's just say I do feel that heaviness and I do feel that burden. Especially when you're talking about really you have to kind of stack that against what it means to be a Marine, period. This fraternity of people who have commitment to each other. Yeah, but we found out some news about the Tiger and the Lamb. So Silas is basically listening to not only music on his headphones, we find out that he's also listening to answering machine messages, essentially, from Pappy and Grammy. And so one of the cool things that we learned, that Rachel and I both apparently learned at the same time, was that the voice actors that played, we know one of the voice actors, and it was
Joe from the Claimers, Jeff Coburn. You'll remember him because Rick bit his throat out.
And Daryl ran with him for a little while, obviously. Well, we know his end. And also from Red Machete, too, if you guys remember that.
Oh,
you know, he was there for a little while there, too. We don't really officially know who the female voice actor is, so, you know, Grammy. But it said that it may be Denise Crosby, who played
Mary. She was Mary from Terminus.
Right. The leader, I would say, of Terminus.
I would call her a leader, yeah.
Yeah.
The one that Carol killed.
Recycling actors from the apocalypse, or maybe, since they were in and around the same region / time, they could have been together and they split apart back when and went feral. Though, I mean, like, you were saying it and I was like, I don't know if Pappy sounds like a... sounds like a pretty decent guy. They both sound like pretty decent people. I don't think... life is good, Silas. We make it good. You know, I don't see that all of a sudden turning into, let's eat people. People are...
right?
People are good, Silas. We make them good. With a little smoke and smoking some paprika.
Right. Yeah. Charity says Silas comes by it naturally. That's a little bit of what we were talking about beforehand. I mean, yeah, exactly. I don't think that Claimer Joe and Mary with the Braid are his grandparents, but how wild would it be? And to choose these two characters who are villains, right? I mean, they chose villains to do these voices. Does this mean something? Do we take note of this, or is it just what it is?
We'll just say this much. Hey, a new Tales of the Walking Dead describes Silas's grandparents turning feral.
There you go. I really only had a few little comments that I noticed about Elton this episode, and it was mostly just like how adorable he is in, like, you know, he's so amazed by Tony's magic and like literally blown away. Like, you really see how impressed he is with this. What does he say? Entertainment like this has just not been available.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. Yeah. And then he tries to be flirty with Hope.
Oh, yeah. Twice, I think, right?
Yeah, a few times, I feel like.
I feel like Iris is ribbing Percy, first of all, like about, I guess I'll read it to you. I'll read the art book to you, you know, since you can, you know, implying.
Yeah.
And then later on at the end, Percy's trying his best to, like, nudge Iris, like, yeah, I got something for you. No, I could just give you the gloves now, you know, like you may want to give them to me later. It's cold, blah. It's like, oh, no, it's fine. I'll give it to you now. It's like, okay, dude, I'm trying to ask you out, sort of.
Right? Yeah, I mean, what does that tell you about the kind of experience Percy has with girls versus the experience Iris has with boys?
Good, right? None. Well, which just does remind me of Elton in the Hall ass thing. It's just like, they just don't get it.
Very sheltered. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, clueless, Charity says. Nisa says... I'm
so embarrassed for Elton.
I'm so embarrassed for you. You have to, like, do the embarrassed for you, Elton.
Sorry. I'm not very good at Valley Girl.
Get good, because this is just going to the train's going to keep on rolling.
Pick up the Valley speak.
Oh, wait, yeah.
That's
so
how
Charity
she
says...
said it when she typed it. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Nisa and I, we just have this connection. I'm so embarrassed that you don't and I don't have it. I'm kidding. No, but Charity says something very funny. Eric was totally right about Elton. Just head over heels.
Oh, yeah.
Head
totally
over heels.
In love with her.
Yeah.
Yep.
Your husband, Eric, I should mention. Yes. Yeah. And yeah, we get to see that a little bit here and there too. Like, Elton gets drunk and he hugs her. He's like, you know, I'm sorry for that experience. And then he gives her the overtures at the end of the episode saying, you know, I'm sorry what happened to you, you know.
Before that, he tries to wear his jacket after Percy gives Iris his gloves. And he's like, is that what I do here?
And she's like, no, you're good. You're good, Elton. I'm fine. I'm cool. I'm so embarrassed for you, but I'm cool.
Hope probably see it either, right? Like, she probably doesn't recognize what's happening. I mean, if she's just as sheltered as everybody else, she might not see the signs either, you know?
Oh, I don't know. Hope picking up on Percy's bullshittery, I think, already tells us how keen she is, I think, in terms of people's, you know, who people are. I think we noticed this even from the beginning. Just mistrustful of Kubelik from the start, all this other stuff. I mean, she is definitely very keen, very Shane in that respect. But, like, not Shane. Nobody's Shane.
No, nobody. Shane.
So to answer your question, I think Hope does see what Elton's doing, like plainly, and it is making everything. You have to keep making it hard, Dwight. This is like Sherry. And it's true. It's like every single overture, every single bit of caring he does for her, it really impacts her. To the point where she's even almost, after having her conversation with Huck, she even almost spills the beans again. I feel like she's about to do. Elton, and then, moves on. And she decides, because Huck's looking on, as kind of like a little reminder, and she just says, yeah, she was a great woman too. Or Elton says making the impossible possible, like learning this magic and feeling like his sister and mom is still alive. That makes him feel like the impossible is possible. And Hope just goes, yeah, anything's possible, or everything's possible. So to button that shit up though, because this, throughout the episode, we're told by Huck to Hope that doing what we do helps everybody else live. We carry the truth so everybody else can live. And it keeps repeating and it keeps repeating. And, given what we said about in the last episode about what the pitfalls are of doing that and the effect it has on both the secret keeper and the person where the secret's being kept from, have you walked away a little bit more on one side versus the other? What are you feeling by the end of that?
That is a really, really, really hard subject to even talk about, because I can see both sides. No good choices. If I were the person with the secret, I would 100% convince myself that that's the right thing to do and justify it, just like Huck and Hope are doing. And I think it makes a lot of sense. I think what they're saying does make a lot of sense. Now, if I were Elton and I didn't know the truth, I'm the type of person that would also want the truth. I would need the truth. I need that kind of closure, but that's the type of person I am. I don't know if everyone else would feel the same. Some people, maybe they would like to hold on to that false hope, or they'd be better off with it. I don't know.
You've said this before. Oh, it was Sadiq. Oh,
yeah. Yes. That's exactly what it was. Him coming back and telling his version of this story. No.
That's right. That's right.
Not okay,
now, let's take that even further. Okay, now that we definitely do know everything about Sadiq, this was actually before that. I think this may have been when we were covering season 9 of The Walking Dead, or maybe the beginning of season 10. Sadiq in The Walking Dead managed to survive the onslaught from the Whisperers in the barn, who ended up being Pike victims, and he was the only one to survive to tell the tale and all that. And Rachel was incensed about that in some senses, where I just want to know the truth. I don't want to know the flowery version of what you think happened. I want to know how it happened. I want to know. You basically said I want to know the ins and outs.
Yes, that's who I am as a person. I need details in order to achieve proper closure.
Right, or to know how to proceed. Right. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. Regardless of the fact, or regardless of how it's going to affect me, I want to know what I'm operating with or operating on. I want to know who these people are. Yeah, it's like the kind of like the survivor's mentality versus victim's mentality. At the end of the day, seeing this situation with Huck and even Hope, knowing what's at stake with at least Hope. We'll get back to Huck in a second. Knowing what happened to Sadiq by the end of it, do you feel the same way? I think you do, but I'm curious.
Wanting to know the truth? Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. If I were Elton or in Elton's place, I would want to know. But that's me. I can't see how Elton would feel or react to that.
Yeah, and I think I feel the same way. I wrestle with this a little bit more because I have to put myself in a different place somehow, just simply because I need to know how it feels like to keep those secrets. Well, when my grandmother passed, so she had two sisters, one who was in Canada, one who was in Israel. One was older than the other. My Aunt Adele was in Canada, and she passed. Actually, it's a rough one too, because she passed shortly after, and they kept it from my grandmother in Israel, and I think she's still alive. But the younger sister passed not too long later, and she never found out. The reason why they kept it from them is because they were elderly and they didn't want to break their hearts. And at the time, I was easily, it was 7 years ago maybe, and I didn't really understand, and I really thought, we really still should tell her. We should tell her that her sister passed. She needs to know the truth, blah, blah, blah. And my parents are like, you just don't understand. They're old. They may pass. They may affect them physically, and I had to break even and just say, I defer to you. I'm not going to go tell her for you. That's not how I operate. But, and it made me really think about about that. And, you know, and you do read things about how people do get physically affected by hearing certain things. And there is the placebo effect is a real thing, you know, where somebody tells you that what they're giving you is medicine and it makes you feel better, but it isn't really medicine, and it probably wouldn't make you feel better, but it does work in some respects. So I have to think about that sometimes. I also know on the other end of things that sometimes people aren't made of glass. People are stronger than you can sometimes take them for, right? Mm-hmm. And so, you know, in a sense, who are you to keep something like this from me? You know, you're not even giving me the choice of, or the challenge of being able to accept this and grow from it and move on from it.
Exactly.
Right? There's that element as well. Like, who are you to decide? And
someone else is deciding what I can handle emotionally, and I don't like that. That's
right.
Not okay with me.
Yeah, let's take that even to its specifics. Like, you know, what is the consequence from telling? I feel like it's more selfish to keep it from him, because you're just keeping it from me so that I won't hate you. But you're not even giving me the choice, right? Or you're not even giving me the truth so I can mourn my mother's loss properly. You know, that's a whole other thing too. So, like, you know, in a way, what is selfish and what isn't? You're keeping it from other people so that they don't have this. Like, in Huck's case, obviously, there is absolutely no reason to keep it from them. She's not giving people the option to judge her fairly, and they might. And all throughout this episode, little bits are dropped of how people, if given half the chance, might actually understand you. I mean, even Hope acknowledges the fact that she forgives Amelia for getting scared and shooting her mom. That's a big thing that they have to glide past. But in the name of Huck is literally the wrong person to talk about this with, because she's like literally going, no. That doesn't mean shit, because you just want to tell Elton so that it'll help you. And I'm seeing Hope literally, like, and I'm like, on my second watch, I'm like seeing Hope literally have this growth development, this major development about forgiving Amelia after reading her things and realizing she's a person that she could forgive her for killing her mom. You know, that's a big thing. Mm-hmm. You know, so I don't know. It's like, what do you think about that? Hope
definitely grew a lot. Now, whether or not, Hope decides ultimately not to tell Elton because she feels like telling him would just be for her, to make herself feel better.
Right.
And obviously this is because of Huck's influence, and obviously that's where Huck stands in her choices. You know, this is the stance I'm going to take. I'm going to carry this so that nobody else has to. But Huck basically tells Hope the same thing. Like, if you tell him, it's just going to make you feel better. Is it really going to make him feel better? And the thing is, we don't know how it's going to affect Elton, and Hope's not giving him the chance to find out. You know, she's basically, you just said it perfectly. Hope is denying Elton the chance to mourn his mother, and that is selfish, I think. But she's convinced herself, and she's justified her decision. So I think she's going to stick to it, at least for a while.
Right. And as we mentioned in the last episode, the counter effect of this is how keeping those secrets, and we all know the weird thing about PTSD is that keeping those secrets and keeping them to yourself makes it so that it affects you in very negative ways. Like, soldiers do keep these things inside, and it ends up affecting them physically, emotionally. They start crumbling. I mean, if you take a couple steps back and realize what's going on here, you could say one thing, which is you tell Elton and then it affects him and it makes him judge you poorly. This is the more selfish part of keeping that secret, is that people judge you unfairly. The possibility of people judging you unfairly, I think, is more selfish than there's the horrible truth, which is the facts, which is my mom died. And that also is selfish. Some people want to know, and you're a kid, you can survive this. But again, I think some people do that because, you know, because you're kids, you might form bad, I don't know, inclinations, things that you grow up with that stick with you, like trauma.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that's a conscious thing. People are aware of that. Like, if I tell him now at this age, you know, it'll be part of his makeup as an adult. But then again, like, everybody's had to survive something. As we realize further into these episodes, like, Elton doesn't tell everybody what he went through as a child. Maybe he will eventually. Feels like maybe the more they start talking about their childhood, what they've had to go through the night the sky fell, and maybe throughout, like, I think maybe it'll make it possible to open up. Don't you think? Maybe?
Yeah, I think so.
Just to hammer the point, the PTSD factor, Huck, this is a common behavioral tactic to keep things inside, to keep everybody else safe. And I feel terrible for her because she's not only had to do this in Afghanistan, which is what we learn, but she has had to do this at home now. And this idea of her having to keep the horrible, ugly truth from everybody so that they can rest easy at night, their head on a pillow, safely, softly, soundly, so that, she keeps the monsters at bay, so that everybody else can play. That's really literally what our people in the military are told. We do this so that everybody else has their, so everybody can have their freedoms and liberties. Mm-hmm. And so I don't think this is a good recipe, though. I can't see this breaking in any good way.
No.
Because it does affect them.
Hope's way too young to have to carry all that. It's definitely going to eat away at her.
Yeah. And maybe the reflexive is true. Like, people worry so much about how it'll affect Elton. Nobody really, Huck especially, obviously, she's not going to recognize how terribly this is going to affect Hope moving forward, because this has been a part of her since she was 10. It's further reinforced now that she's 16, 17, let's say. And that's going to be a part of her makeup. This is the lesson that she's going to learn moving forward in life. I mean, Huck wasn't all that much older. I mean, right. we were just musing over the fact that she might have been like around 20, 21 when this all happened. And yet, yeah, she's probably about 30 now, mm-hmm. and dealing with a kid who's like 16, could be old enough to be her daughter. I don't know. Maybe she had a thing, a Huck for adoption, whatever.
I would, well, and Felix had a birthday at the beginning of the series. Did they mention what birthday it was? The birthday card that Iris draws for him, like his birth. We saw his birthday happen, but did they say what birthday it was?
I didn't see his age. No,
I would believe he's 26.
I definitely believe that he is younger than Huck, for sure. Because it seems like when the night the sky fell, like first of all, he was away. It seemed like he was around the university area, but he had nowhere to go. Like the references being dropped of his days on the streets after his parents kicked him out. That wasn't the night the sky fell. That was, so there was some things that happened between the time he got kicked out till the time he decided to come back to his parents' house. And maybe after the night the sky fell. So there's at least 2 years, let's say. I don't know. Maybe he's about 28. So it was his 16th birthday, let's say. Maybe he was 16 when he got kicked out. I remember specifically when he was talking about it, he was saying, I have a job now, which means it sounded like he got his papers to actually work at 16.
Okay.
Something like that. Because, I don't know if you had to do this when you were like around that age, but I had to get papers in order to work, like not in your uncle's store kind of thing. You like to actually work in another place to get hired as a minor in like an organization. So we had to get like working papers and, the ability to work even for like a summer job.
We just can work at 16 here.
Okay.
I don't remember having paperwork filled out or anything.
Well, I started working at 14.
Oh, yeah. See, I was 16.
So, yeah, 16, you can actually start working. But I feel like maybe he was even younger. Like maybe Felix was maybe he was about 15, 14. It could have been that he was younger. Either way, it sounds like he's definitely younger than Huck. And she has a little bit more experience both in battle and combat. And how fitting that she is actually teaching the kids how to fight, too, like Hope especially. And it feels like we're on the same page on that there is more damage being done by keeping the secret versus telling the secret. Well, what do you think?
I think so. I definitely think so. I mean, it's the better of two horrible situations, right? The best of the worst is what we're dealing with. So there's no good choice.
There really is none. Yeah. Both fall on the side of pretty bad choices, but one has a possible better outcome. Because, and to button this whole conversation up, the very thing that I was afraid of is starting to kind of take hold. The impossible is possible with Elton saying that, and then really starting to believe that his mother is alive and maybe his sister as well. And Hope is just going along for the ride. And I feel like this is going to have negative consequences. Like, I feel like this show takes you down this certain path from a perspective, from Huck's perspective, and even Hope's a little bit, of how keeping that secret, keeps people alive and people safe, and they can sleep with their heads on the pillows safe at night and everything like that. And then all of a sudden at the end of the episode, it drops a bomb on you. Like a silent bomb, a bomb that you can't hear coming. And that's Elton saying, and I'm starting to believe that she is alive. When he first explained this, he says, I know it sounds crazy, and there's no reason to believe that she is alive. But now he's like, oh yeah, she's alive. She's alive. I'm going to find her.
Every time Hope agrees with him, it's sort of reinforcing that false hope that he has. And that's damage. That's the damage that she's doing. Every time she says, yeah, it's possible, when she knows the truth, she's going to end up hurting him more, because eventually, I don't know. I'd like to say eventually she's going to have to tell him the truth, but I mean, maybe she doesn't. Maybe he just finds out.
Oh man, the show is going to find a way to back Hope in a corner, and I wonder what she's going to do. I really do wonder. I really do. It's like one of those unwinnable situations. You know it's going to happen. We just want to know how it happens and what happens afterwards.
Yeah. I had a thought pop into my head since she's had this conversation with Huck. Do you think she'll even bring it up with Iris now?
Meaning the reason why she was coming for Iris to talk about it some more is so that she could probably tell her a little bit more about it. And now that she's spoken with Huck, she might not bother.
Right.
Which is interesting, because there's that one scene in the back of the pickup truck where Iris is saying, I feel like we're changing. Right. And then Hope is like,
it's just the beginning. Something like that.
I feel like it's just the beginning, right? And it so is.
It really is. It is.
Yeah, and by the way, Sharondy's response to me saying, "Oh, it's like a silent bomb that Elton drops on us as the viewers." She goes, "Silent but deadly."
Potentially, yeah.
just like Owens' beer farts. Anyways. Back in the first home base that they find, they go through the actual CRM map, and Tony actually figures out the decoder, the shade squares that we were talking about, sort of, that Althea finds, the shade square in the maps, and how it actually works. Tony actually finds out that, if you point it in a certain direction with light and you shine it on a map, it actually shows you what these symbols represent and what they are, Some of them are random, some of them don't do anything, and then some of them, when you shine the decoder on, will show you exactly what's there. But and we find out what the symbol for oil, like a filling station, and we also find out the symbol for genetic research facilities. But what's interesting is that if you go back to the map, the big map that's shown, by the way, of in order of left to right, let me give it to you from your perspective. Left to right is like Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, which was my big circle, and then Pennsylvania, etc. There are definitely oil drops everywhere, but if you look very closely, there's also genetic research facilities too, because you see
along that map.
Yeah, you see the little 3 lines, or like 3 lines here, a couple little lines there, and another big 3 lines in that.
The double helix.
Yeah, if you put the right symbol on, you'll see the double helix as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so if you have that decoder, you'll see the research facilities, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So there are other genetic research facilities too, not just the one in New York, not just the one in Ithaca, New York, which is what we find out later on. Obviously, we find this out later a little bit more, because Iris takes out her own map of New York, uses one of the shade squares, matches it up with the only one that's in Ithaca, New York. So now we know exactly where Leopold Fitz, Leopold Bennett is actually in. We also see them celebrating. Obviously, the kids are upstairs playing Truth or Dare, but while the kids are playing Truth or Dare, Felix and Tony have this interesting conversation, and there's a shit ton of foreshadowing. Tony's basically talking about family, how Percy came to be with him, his sister, son, they got a divorce, he got custody of the kid. I guess it was a very messy divorce, and I guess Tony got guardianship or something. And it sounds like his mom died, if I'm not mistaken, at some point.
Yep, that's what I understood.
And talk about silent but deadly, Sharondy. And you don't know it until it's finally there, and one of those things is when you start realizing how much you care for somebody, you do anything for them, right? And I feel like that's a crazy, crazy foreshadowing, not only for Tony by the end of the episode, but also, this is what I wasn't sure about. So Sharondy points out correctly, Tony said Percy's mom split in the last episode. So I guess she ran away.
Okay.
So I thought he meant split by like split from her husband. But I think that could be also true. That could be true also. Like the dad left, and then she eventually left Percy with him, and he took guardianship and all that. But I feel like that's also like foreshadowing too about what's going on with Tony and Felix. Like, do you think maybe that Felix is going to have to face a choice where like he has to give his life up for the kids?
Oh gosh, I hope.
This is what I've been saying from the beginning.
Yeah, I know. Oh, I know. Yeah, I think I like the parallel between this scene that this scene showed me was that Tony and Felix both have chosen family, right? These aren't their actual children. They sort of chose to be a part of this family. And so Tony and Felix are the same that way, sort of thrown into these parental positions. And so I think Felix can really relate to Tony that way too. And I don't know, maybe because he can see himself in Tony, he trusts him maybe a little bit more, but you know, that doesn't necessarily always be a good thing.
And maybe rock bottom, too. I mean, both of these characters hit their rock bottom, you know, parents not loving you, kicking you out, and then finding family, like Leo. He does mention Leo a couple times throughout this episode, and how he saved him, you know, from himself, let's say.
I hope Tony's death is not a foreshadow for Felix's.
You know what's funny is that, like,
hope not.
What makes me crazy a little bit is knowing what we know about Honey, Fear the Walking Dead's 5th episode with Dwight and Sherry. How you know how Dwight is talking about his escape plan, and it makes me feel very funny knowing that and thinking, oh, is that really Tony? Because his face is bashed in by the end of the episode beyond recognition. Right. So
I kind of have the same thing when Iris walks in and goes, Tony? I'm like, how can you tell? As a Silas advocate, I want to throw my hands up and say, this was all staged. Percy and Tony did this on purpose. They found somebody who looked like Tony. They did this. Tony and Percy are up to no good, and they're framing Silas. And then I'm like, okay, but how do they know that that's like Silas's signature move, right? Like, they don't know these things, and my stomach hurts. I'm so scared for Silas right now, and I just want to know what happened.
Yeah, my stomach hurts too. You know, what's interesting is that you remember we were talking about that awkward scene between Percy trying to woo Iris into the back of the pickup truck, which obviously we see is his interpretation of the Louvre, you know, having the Mona Lisa up front and center. Off to the side was Eugene Delacroix's
Liberty leading the people.
Right, Liberty leading the people, which basically depicts the French's not first revolution, but like I would say the second revolution. Yeah, the painting itself hails to the original revolution. But was it Charles the 10th? This is really what Charles X, removing Charles X, represented. Eugene Delacroix was actually born around the Enlightenment period where the First Revolution took place. So he existed through the period of Enlightenment, and then he painted his painting, and that signified the Romantic period, basically. So we're post-revolution, we're in freedom, you know, freer times, and this depicts a Romantic era leading back, you know, looking back at those times, you know, using the style of the Romantics to look back. And so he kind of birthed the Romantic period, which is interesting. You know, looking back at a prior time in this liberty that is the apocalypse, we do that a lot in this series. You know, we look at what we have now, see the beauty of what we have now, but we also look back and sometimes see what romantically of weekends and and traffic and things. You know, to the point where, by the way, when they're showing, not that we're going to talk about this just yet, but I remember when Huck sees the television screen and Garnett Medical Center, which again we'll get into, on the TV screen, there's a woman pushing a stroller across the little portion on the left of the screen behind the reporter, and that reminded me of the shadow puppet of the mom and dad pushing the stroller. Yeah, that's a little funny thing that if you don't catch it, you'll miss it. You got to have like a bigger screen and actually see it.
I got to go back and read what Sharon D and Nisa are saying about the whole Silas situation, because I 100% agree. So Sharon D says they're con men, right? Nisa's saying Silas's hands aren't hurt enough to have caused that damage, and I see what you're saying. It looks more like someone smeared blood on his hands. There were shoe prints leading up to the bathroom stall, and he was clearly drunk, right? I mean, no one's disputing that, right?
Well, that's why I brought up Percy and Iris, that whole Louvre scene, because just before that, while Silas is looking on and looking at Percy, the camera pans to the bottles of booze.
Yes.
Deliberately. And so we know that's happening.
At it, right? I also thought Percy deliberately lured Iris out of the facility to the truck so that she didn't walk in on whatever happened. Yeah, so she didn't get in the way or walk in on what was happening. Sharon D points out that they're experts at reading people. You are absolutely correct. I mentioned, you know, how do they know that Silas tends to beat up faces until they're unrecognizable? But, you know, they were drinking. Anybody could have slipped and whispered in Percy's ear about Silas's past. That's absolutely
true.
Possible. I 100% agree. Silas is innocent. Whatever happened, I do not believe Silas had anything to do with it. And if he did, I think think it was set up. He was set up to do this. If he is the one that punched this face, I also hope it's not Tony. I don't know. I'm so scared.
Right. And that's the thing. Okay, so let me bring you into. Let me point out a couple facts too. The thing that gets Iris to wake up when she falls asleep in the back of the truck, if you look at the subtitles, is glass breaking, footsteps
departing.
scurrying away. Yeah, footsteps departing. So that happened for sure.
Yep.
How many footsteps? We don't know. Is it 4 foot? Is it 2 sets of footsteps? I don't know. Oh wow, Sharon is saying Silas equals Janice.
We do see blood drops, from the bathroom to this broken open window, and then we see footsteps from the body to the bathroom stall. Who knows? I mean, Silas might have even walked in after the fact and just found this mess and then went and hid.
Yeah. I that's the thing. I think he was definitely set up. I don't think the blood smears. I don't think that was planted. I think he probably discovered the body, to be honest. But the setup part was definitely the wrench for sure.
Yeah, leaving that there. We've only seen Silas take down one walker with that wrench so far, right? Most of the other kills have been with his bare hands.
Well, one that we know of, and the other maybe. But yeah, meaning his past. But the one thing that we do see constantly, the only thing that we know constantly is that Silas is afraid of not only killing the dead, technically, probably still, but he's definitely scared of killing the living, but even the dead. And so that's what makes this kind of more of a ticker on Team Silas, on him not doing it too.
I am so Team Silas.
Yeah, I'm too. But you know what? It's funny that they're really painting us down this really interesting path of having enough evidence to believe that he might have done it. And simply because in the sneak peek, they will show us a little bit more of what happened to Silas in his past.
I almost threw up after watching the sneak peeks for next week.
Right. Because it'll make you feel almost impossible to think otherwise, right?
Like it hurts my stomach to just even think about what I saw. Sharon D saying again, Janice. This is another callback to Janice in that situation, being a scapegoat.
And Lisa says, I'll go Chris Hansen on this. Silas is innocent. He is the victim.
He is the victim. I agree. I think anybody who thinks Silas did this isn't paying attention to the show.
Yeah, I feel like if they really do go the whole, they planted a walker and smashed its face in, that would be really, really interesting in terms of tying these two shows together, like Fear the Walking Dead and Walking Dead World Beyond. I feel like that would be really cool. And I feel like it's almost unfair, too. Like that this is like the negative effect of having these Easter eggs pop up on both series, too. So it just doesn't make sense, though, right? And why would Percy run away,
Yeah, I
completely.
Can't think of Right. I can't think of a reason that Percy and Tony would stage this.
Unless, the only other thing I can think of is that they're all in on it. Like, he thinks that they're all in on it. They're all horrible. But I don't think that's the case, I'm saying Percy. Like, they killed my dad, my guardian, and, how am I supposed to live with, they're not going to believe me.
If that really is Tony.
Right. Yeah. Let's assume that it is, right? let's play that experiment. Yeah. But like, you're right. Luring Iris into the trailer, never showing up. There's something going on here. It could be deliberate, and it could be that a grift as well. It could be something like that. Luring him to the safety, not only like saying that, hey, we're going to stick around a little bit longer, aka we're not. One of the first things that Tony says is that we're just going to continue conning people before he discovers that, we're going to stick around. Felix kind of is like, you're going to do that. Oh, I'm used to, I did that too. That whole thing.
Yep. Saying they're going to stick around for the long haul is a perfect misdirect.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's interesting. So Sharondy's like leaving him tied. So part of the sneak peek is Sharondy says is they leave him tied out in the open air at night. And looks like the episode's continuing from that moment too. So they tie him up right away. Sharondy also says because they pegged Silas as the problem in the group, so he needed to be sidelined. But let me take that a little bit further. What if that is part of the grift? What if Percy doesn't run away and they run away? Because it doesn't look like that. Yeah, he doesn't run away with the truck. That's one thing. So what's the purpose?
Right.
Oh yeah, because Iris is in it. Right. So what's interesting is that maybe there's more to this con than we realize. Maybe we're just trying to take out Silas. Maybe that's all they're trying to do.
Could be. What sort of threat, besides romantic, does Silas play? Why would they need to take out Silas? Simply because Silas is the one sort of butting heads with these two, saying they don't belong? Is that really a threat?
I think so. I think Silas is the only one that doesn't really fall for any of this. He's not up. He is not feeling the magic.
her, though. Hope's kind of calling her bullshit out, too. So why wouldn't she be a threat?
You know what I wonder? Because maybe she's next. Because yeah, I think that was maybe the test. Or they might keep her around because, like I said in the other episode, sometimes you need that character to come out and call you on the bullshit, right? So that you can misdirect them some more. Like, oh, you caught me. I was caught in a lie. Right. But otherwise harmless. Little do they know, right? But
right. Yeah, don't judge Huck. Don't judge Hope by the cover.
And actually, let's even go further with that. Percy, has no idea what the secret that Hope is keeping. He knows right away that there is something and exploits it when he digs further. I mean, in fact, he basically controlled that game.
Can we take just a moment and talk about the look on Iris's face when Percy asks that question and Hope looks at her directly for some sort of help?
Like, what do I do here?
Iris basically blows her off. I mean, that was a lot. There was a lot being said there with no words. Was I the only one that saw that?
I didn't, but the only thing I really recognized was that Iris came in with the clinch saying, oh, that's true. That was the worst thing. You know, like she's covering for her. Sure.
Right. Later. But when Percy first
just after.
Right. When Percy first asked that question, Hope looks at Iris. Iris looks at Percy, then looks back at Hope like, what are you going to say?
Well, and what do you feel Iris is saying in that instance?
I don't exactly know, but the look on her face is not kind. I did not like the expression on her face. It didn't. If I were Hope, I wouldn't be feeling good about having support from my sister in that moment. That's all I could read.
Well, actually, Nisa's saying something interesting too. They saw Walter getting Hope. They might think she's harmless. Okay. Right. That's interesting.
Because Walter got the jump on her. She might not be a physical threat. Sure. Okay.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, you do need that exploit. But yeah, I'll follow what you say. I'll keep that in my memory banks though about Iris. Okay.
And it could have been like, it might not have anything to do with anything.
And it could be just her being upset, just with the question, and not knowing what to do, but can't obviously show that they don't know what to do. Right. Or, and this is Percy's strong point, he may see both of these faces and think, oh, she knows that secret. Iris knows that secret that Hope's keeping. Okay. Which makes him probably think, I either can't trust them, or now that I know what to do later. And so there's something going on here. I like that. And, what's interesting is that Tony does tell Felix to hang back. It's like, let them have their fun.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe we do have enough evidence to kind of safely say that this is the big grift.
I just don't know what the end results are yet. I can't see what their goal is yet by doing this.
Well, Silas is the only one thus far who has called them on their bullshit, not participated, and maybe this is something I kind of brought up in the last episode. Silas is maybe one of those people that they wouldn't normally grift. Like those dangerous people. I'm not going to fuck with these guys. Because they don't know him. They have inklings of him. Maybe you're right. Maybe they said something about what they have heard happen to him and all that stuff. And, when you're dealing with a wild card, things that you can't predict and things you can't read, that automatically signals danger. If I can't predict the outcome, you can't predict the success of your grift, then what's the point? So let's take him off the board and I can deal with the pieces that I know I can move around. And then, they can come back and go, hey, yeah, I saw exactly what happened. They killed Tony and blah, blah, blah. Etc. But what is the long con? Because is Tony just going to hang back? Real Tony? Or maybe this is all Percy's machinations. You know what I mean? Which really is disturbing. Let's say if that really is Tony. And Tony is the one who is really dead. And, Percy is using his con ability to basically take control of the board, be the only grifter. Yeah. Kids in the apocalypse, right?
I mean, do you see, we don't really know much about Tony and Percy. So you're saying that you see Percy capable of killing his uncle for necessary reasons?
Yeah, maybe. So Sharondy's saying Iris hasn't been supportive since Hope told her the secret. I don't think that's true, though. I don't think we really know anything. All we're picking up are... They haven't talked about it. That's true.
Hope wants to hash it out, and Iris keeps saying, later.
But that was just the one time. We got a resolution by the end of it, I didn't know what you were going through, etc. I didn't know how much time you lost. And like we said in this episode, I don't think she's going to go to Iris anymore for talking further. There might be a back and forth where Iris does want to talk to Hope a little bit more about it, and Hope won't talk about it. But let's just say what Nisa says is that Tony to drunk Felix. So what's the deal with Silas? He's a very quiet type, and so Felix tells him.
I think she's giving us an example of what could have, how Tony and Percy could have gotten information about Silas.
There is a voiceover of Felix saying, fresh start, and now he's going to get one, Silas. And so that could be maybe even a flashback to Tony's conversation with him. That could be true. And that's not crazy scenario. This all leads down a certain path that if these two were still grifting the gang, taking Silas off the board is a prudent one, because now you can manipulate these people without the threat of strength, unless Hope decides to do something. Or Huck,
Yeah. I like how you pointed out, though, that like Hope is calling them on their bullshit, but it's almost like Percy's deciding what Hope is going to call out, right? Like he's saying exactly what he wants Hope to call, so he can still manipulate her. If that changes, then she might be in danger. But I definitely see what you're saying now about Silas being a threat. He's the one not falling in line, not believing these things, and so eventually he may be able to get into other people's heads and start putting doubt in their minds too about these two people. So, and that would be dangerous down the road. Yeah,
he doesn't even fall for drinking alcohol.
Right. Sharon says Silas can't be manipulated. I agree. And Percy would see that he can't be manipulated. And like Dave says, take him off the board.
Yeah. And Nisa says Hope is very much dealing with her own stuff, not paying attention to, and Huck, maybe. So, yeah, I think that really wraps that up, though. I mean, if this is a grift, taking Silas off the board is prudent. If it's not, Percy's running away. And we all think the worst of Silas, which is interesting. But if this is something Percy solely thought up, actually killing Tony and moving on, and I don't know with what the purpose of that is, coming back and maybe saying, Silas killed my uncle. Meanwhile, he did. And then why? Right? Why? That's the big thing.
That's what I'm stuck on. Why? What is the motive here?
Yeah,
did you watch the sneak peeks? Did you see Percy in any of them? I was so focused on Silas, I didn't pay attention. I don't remember seeing him.
Yeah, Silas flashback, Elton going to Silas saying they're going to leave you here. Felix voiceover, fresh start, now he's going to get one. There was not that much to look ahead to, right? So Iris says something and it feels like she's almost defending Silas, but in the sneak peek, Nisa says Silas can't tell Iris what she wants because he doesn't remember what happened. All right, before we move on from this specific piece, I do want to say that I do know where they're actually at when, the place where they're at discovering Tony's body. The Laurel Point Country Club. It's just outside Pittsburgh.
Oh.
There's only one. I found it just southeast of Pittsburgh, not that far away. But yeah, they're making some progress, at least throughout the map. I think the refilling station was definitely in Ohio, and they drove through and they went to Laurel. Because again, they're keeping off the interstate. If they go on the side streets, they can actually make it there safely without being picked up by CRM. Because they have the map now. They have an idea of how they operate. During the Truth or Dare scene, a song is being played. It's called Mania by Last Year.
I think I was so upset about how loud the music was. I didn't even pay attention to what song it was. I was so angry with the volume.
I was wondering where it even came from. Like, to be honest, where is this being broadcasted? It just seems to be there. I don't know.
It definitely sounded like they were playing music, though, right? Because then when we're downstairs with Tony and Felix, it's sort of muffled. So they're definitely playing music.
Yeah, Sharon points out right. Yeah, Percy's tape player. I think I saw him put it on. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, in the scene right before they play Truth or Dare. Yeah, it's way too loud.
Way too loud.
Think about the walkers, gosh. And so here are the lyrics. I've got a feeling I've never felt. I could run 1,000,000 miles just to hear you make a sound. Talk about loudness, right? And I never want to come down. I'm not going to sleep tonight. I've never felt so alive. And this is the chorus. I'm in mania, out of my mind, out of my head, and I'm never going to sleep again. I'm in mania. So basically kids being kids. I'm never going to sleep. We're going to live forever. Okay, and then will you catch me when I fall? I'm afraid of heights and anything is possible tonight, but I'll be fine. I'll be just fine. No reason to be afraid, and no, I'm not insane. I'm where I've been before, so deep inside my world, beyond, and I'm losing all control, and I'm never coming home. That's interesting. That's an interesting lyric.
That last part sounded like it was talking to Silas, right?
Oh, you're thinking Silas. I'm thinking of Huck, and I've been where I've never been before, deep, deep inside my world, you know, and deep and lost in my secrets.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm losing all control and I'm never coming home. Like the idea of that, you know, I can't go home now. I've done all this wrong or whatever.
Could apply to both Huck or Silas.
Well, tell me why you think Silas, and I agree with you, keep in mind, but you explain from your perspective.
Well, I mean, obviously the secret of what happened with his father, he's sort of living in this, his own little world right now. He feels like he's in his own little world watching Iris and Percy have their little whatever's going on. And so that makes Silas feel extra isolated. And then by the end of the episode, we see him lose his mind, or they want us to believe he lost his mind when he killed Tony. I'm using a lot of quotes.
Yeah. Yes. It's good to point out for the audio crowd.
Right.
Keep that in mind.
Right. Just when you were saying that, it made me think of Silas.
And maybe even Elton. Elton, it makes me everybody should be thinking this is Elton more than anybody else. This is drunk Elton.
The first part made me think of Elton, right? Like running 1,000 miles to hear you make a noise, or like how much he loves Hope.
Yeah. But I never want to come down. I'm not going to sleep tonight. I never felt so alive. But even more, like, let's go back to Hope. I'm afraid of heights and anything is possible. I'm afraid of heights and anything's possible tonight. So what Huck says to Hope as she comes out onto the roof, you shouldn't be on this roof drunk. You shouldn't be up here at all.
Right. And he said, I'm so glad he's an asshole also, because I agree. I dislike Percy with my whole heart.
Yeah, I don't know how to feel about it. And it's the only reason why I say that is because it's really, really natural for us to hate anybody outside our main group. It makes sense, right? Is that not true?
It's very true.
Oh my God, you're laughing at Nisa's thing too? Nisa's saying, I've never felt so alive, in quotes. It's Tony.
Tony. Oh my God.
I never felt so dead. In quotes.
I dislike Percy because of how he's making Silas feel. That's my only reason for hating him as much as I do.
Right. I don't trust that feeling, and because I have the same feeling. And I feel like that every now and again he does kind of shoot a short glance over to Silas. Am I not wrong, Percy?
Maybe. It was hard to tell who was looking at who in this episode, to be honest. There were a few glances that I thought were, like, at one point, I thought Felix caught the way Silas was looking at Iris and Percy, but then he gets this big shit grin on his face, so then I'm like, okay, that's obviously not what he was looking at.
Oh, no, he was looking at the methods.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. It's hard to say who is looking at who in this episode.
Yeah. Oh, and maybe even the tell for Percy, he's driving a wedge between Silas and Iris. Mm-hmm. For sure. That's all about. This whole thing has been about driving a wedge between Silas and Iris. It's not even about Iris at all as the optimist. Think about it. He wanted Silas to speak up.
Ooh.
when the questions were getting too hot. He wanted to see at what point where he would say, stop it. Interesting.
Yeah. How far before Silas steps in? I like what Nisa's saying too. It's like Percy's throwing these looks at Silas on purpose.
Right, because Nisa's on the same page as me.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, hey, I got your girl. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I know what you're saying, Sharon. Leave my Cyrus alone. Hashtag Cyrus.
Oh, I'm right there. That's right. Get away from Cyrus and Iris. Silas and Iris. Yeah.
When Tony is describing the card trick that he shows Elton, well, one of the notes that Sharon left, he particularly uses the Queen of Hearts. And as we find out later in the episode, Huck's name is Jennifer Malik. Now, Jennifer meaning fair as in beautiful. That's what it means, and that's why everybody's named Jennifer, because they all think their kids are beautiful, even though they're not. Moving along.
I graduated with like 13 Jennifers. Right.
And Malik is actually Arabic, by the way. Melik. That means king. In Hebrew, it's called Melech, so it's the same origin. So she essentially is the fair queen. And obviously the card that Tony's using with, and eventually Elton is using with Hope, is the Queen of Hearts. So the Queen of Hearts is...
King?
Well,
Malik means king.
Malik means king. It means king.
Oh,
but still royalty, you know, the idea of royalty. A female queen would be Malka in Hebrew. But anyway, the Queen of Hearts does have a representation, and Sharon Dio actually was kind enough to point them out. The Queen of Hearts represents sincere and loving woman of tender heart. For a man, this card means his sweetheart lover, or a woman he will marry, Elton. For a woman, she signifies a sincere friend or nearest relative. Hope and Huck? What? Anyway, sincere friend or relative. More generally, the Queen of Hearts evokes the feelings of unconditional and caring love. So I thought that was kind of sweet too. And Nisa's mentioning also, just like Sharon D, I think may have mentioned in her notes, that Jennifer Malick's friend, or maybe more, is named Sergeant Drake. Sergeant Drake, meaning Drake is dragon, and she has to eventually slay the dragon to save those people that were being threatened to die by the hands of the Marines that she represented. Oh yes, and of course, Sharon, you're getting your one Game of Thrones reference, obligatory Game of Thrones reference when Melisandre seduces Gendry in season 3 to get his king's blood, quote unquote. She talks about sacrificing lambs, how you don't let them see the knife because fear taints the meat, and that's what Huck is doing with Walter and Hope. You know, Malik equals king. You know, we should mention this now. So one of Sharon D's notes is Ithaca, New York. But I always thought Ithaca was a funny name for a town in New York State. When we have Rome, New York as well. Rome apples. What's interesting about Ithaca is the home of Ulysses. Ulysses goes on a journey, obviously the Odyssey, Odysseus. So obviously representative of a journey and the end of Odysseus' journey. So the home of the Odyssey. That's what Ithaca means, the home of the Odyssey. So this has always been the goal. I think the goal of let's pick a city in New York that is the perfect representation of this whole hero's journey that these kids are on. So I thought that was kind of a nice little reference. I'd always, yeah, I wasn't going to look it up too. And I thought, oh, Ithaca, how telling because where Jennifer is based with Sergeant Drake, well, let's say her proper designation, Lance Corporal Malik and Sergeant Drake are based in Middleton, New York. How do we know that? Or in and around Middleton, New York. We know that because Garnett Medical Center, the TV program that pops up while they are hanging out, that's actually in Middleton, New York. That's the 6th facility that has been locked out for patients because they are in lockdown and they're not accepting any more patients. So I see the Melisandre reference. So Huck basically talks Walter down, even though she knows that's what she's going to have to do is kill him. But rather than scare him, she does it gently, even with like a caress, and doesn't let him see the knife, quote unquote, her gun, until, and didn't let Hope see it either.
I like that the whole time Huck is talking to Walter. She's saying, I can save you. I've seen this. I can rescue you. Basically, we'll get you through this. And I think in her mind, she really believed that, not that she was going to rescue him, but that she was going to give him mercy, and that was her way of saving him.
It definitely plays with the theme that keeps repeating through this episode, is how sometimes we do have to lie to our friends, let's say, but also lie in general to keep everybody else alive.
This is where personality. I think it's showing that some people will lie to save others, and how that could be beneficial. But I also think we're seeing the other side of that too. We're seeing the harm it can do. Just the scenario. What Huck was saying to Walter was obviously a lie. She ended up killing him. I think Hope and Huck are going to keep this situation to themselves. I don't think they're going to share exactly what happened and how that went down with anybody else. So yet another secret that they're going to keep between them. And I think all these little secrets are going to start adding up and eating away at them. And I think we're going to see the downside to keeping all these secrets.
Yeah. Or, I even think that giving Hope another secret to keep other than her own, is maybe a way to not think about her own as severely. I was trying to figure out how this makes everybody hold together. And there's something about fraternity. This is going to lead me into talking about Huck's past. But the idea of a shared trauma does, if they can talk about it, if they can continue to talk about it amongst themselves, something that Sergeant Drake was not willing to do, even got angry doing it. When Huck tries to bring it up too, Drake shuts her down, and there's a reason for that. But maybe this is a way for them to actually change the nature of their relationship by having and talking about a shared trauma. By the end of the episode, Huck is looking on while Elton and Hope are talking. She is the first one to say, "Hope, you're with me." After the talk on the roof, "Hope, you're with me. I'm going to watch over you. I'm not going to be like Sergeant Drake in this episode," in my flashbacks, like I'm verbalizing it. "You are with me. I'm going to take care of you. We are going to take care of each other. I've told you," well, I don't think she does tell her own secret yet, but maybe this is a way for her to finally unburden and become the light. Hope could be Huck's light too. So maybe instead of telling Iris, I just thought of something very interesting, something that you said particularly in many episodes. I hope Hope tells Iris, because what if Hope and Huck have this thing and Iris finds out about it? Why didn't you tell me? Well, I was trying to tell you, bitch. You just kept blowing me up. Oh, I tried to tell you that one time, but, you know, it wasn't to be and blah, blah, blah. And then she understood by the end, but like didn't ask me again. But what would it be like if Iris found out that Hope and Huck were telling each other these things and Iris had to find out by other means or overhearing them or whatever it is? Like we said about Elton finding out through other means, what if Iris found out about this shared trauma, the shared secret keeping? You know, that would be very interesting position to put Iris in, and could be the means for them to start moving in different directions. I'm taking what you said, and I'm just be like, oh, let's take what you said further. Ah, okay. Well, let's go back to the beginning of the episode, you know, where it starts off with Huck, where she's in this cabin of some sort. And, you know, it starts with a dream sequence, actually, which is just this mishmash of everything we see in this episode. And I thought it was brilliantly done. Down to, like, seeing a thermal of the people that are in the bar and those people in the bar running away. And it's just so crazy. It's such a crazy dream. Like, it really puts you in Huck's fever dreams and how she really probably can't sleep as much, even though she had no trouble that other day with Felix in the other house. If you remember. But lately, I mean, I think it's wearing on her, and after she sees the pack, it just makes everything worse. One of the things that in that dream sequence, though, is, and it comes up again.
Is this another Cudlets episode? I did not know
Cudlets
that.
direct this again? Oh, that's awesome.
Awesome.
So one of the things is a slow down version of Information Society's What's on Your Mind? No. I want to know what you're thinking. There's some things you can't hide. We're sort of familiar with the song, right? You know, we've all heard it before. It's from the 80s. But let's examine the lyrics for a second. Here I am in silence, looking around without a clue. I find myself alone again, all alone with you. I can see behind your eyes the things that I don't know. If you hide away from me, how can our love grow? Who is this even about? Is this Elton? Elton by now must be picking up on some of the stuff that Hope is going through. So it's in her dream sequence in the bar with Sergeant Drake, but it's, you know, obviously with the thermal, and it's very slowed down in the dream, and here you can actually hear it in her flashback with Drake. And it's pertinent to the scene. He's like, there's another song that plays in the background afterwards while they're at the jukebox, but I'll get to that in a second. But yeah, like they're both having this shared trauma. But none of them know what the other really thinks because nobody's talking about it. It's funny how the band is called Information Society. And obviously the chorus is, I want to know what you're thinking. There's some things you can't hide. I want to know what you're feeling. Tell me what's on your mind. So the next and only other verses are, I know I could break you down, but what good would it do? I could surely never know that what you say is true. Here I am in silence. It's a game I have to play. You and I in silence with nothing else to say. Yeah, so what's the point of me trying to break? It almost goes to what Percy was trying to do with Hope, too. Like, that was really rough. Yeah, I could really sense the discomfort that Hope was having in that moment, trying to think of what to say, too.
Oh, yeah, for her question.
So what is the point in trying to break Hope down, if not to put her in an uncomfortable position? And I always wonder, like, why people tell the truth and truth or dare sometimes. Like, and I feel like the answer to that is to kind of, like, bond, obviously, right? Because you want to tell the truth because you want to be in the in-group. You know, if you want to talk in biological evolution terms, like, you want to be in the in-group so that you know who to rely on. And maybe in that moment, Percy knows that he cannot rely on Hope, too. And Silas.
Well, he might also just be kind of pushing Hope's buttons and see, you know, kind of a test for her and Silas, right? Like, how far can I push them before one of them snaps or at least gets snippy? You know what I mean? He's pushing. And, you know, like you said, why do people tell the truth? Well, people don't usually tell the truth when they pick truth during Truth or Dare, right? So immediately, Percy, I don't know either. I mean, I can't think of a good enough lie. So I don't tell the truth, but
you know what it is? I think when pushed, people don't tell the truth. Like, if it's something that they really cannot tell people because they will be in the out group, they will lie, or they'll choose another truth, which is interesting too.
Well, I think Percy sees that, obviously. Like, she's going to go with something that's not the worst thing she's ever done, and so he's going to push her on it, and he's going to poke her and you know, see who comes to her defense, or does she defend herself, or, you know, this is just him reading people. He's reading the room. He's learning these people.
And instead of subtle hints, he's really trying to go for the jugular on how these people are going to respond to the harder stuff. Every little bit is data.
I think he's proved that he has this sort of abrasive personality, and so these questions they're not going to think it's weird, I guess. I mean, it is weird. The whole thing is weird, but so is Percy, so they'll allow it, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. And, you know, he tells the stories. He finds his way to kind of root them back into a home center where he's telling the stories. He's charming. He helps. All that stuff, you know, so it's easy for people, I think, to snap back to trusting him again. I don't blame them.
I love Elton and his comic relief always.
Oh yeah, he just doesn't get it all the time.
He's so adorably naive. I just love it.
Explain. So say Nisa's comment and then explain the context of that comment.
Nisa's saying, "I don't know what's customary," and Elton's referring to, they're about to play Truth or Dare. He says, "I don't know what's customary. Do we get seating? Should we get more seats?"
He's just never been in a social situation.
Right? It's so adorable. And he's so honest about it too. I think that's what I like. He's very honest about being clueless, and I love it because I guess I'm kind of the same way. I mean, I can admit when I'm completely clueless about something.
I'm actually just thinking about who is the most honest here, and obviously it's Elton, but like now I'm starting to think about like all these different avatars for truth and innocence, and like Elton is definitely one of them. Is the one. Definitely the one.
Sure. Oh yeah. Nisa's saying she can relate to Elton too.
Sort of. You know what haul ass means. Everybody can see. That's the thing. This is why I say this, is that everybody can sort of relate to Elton. Everybody's been in that one moment where they don't know what is customary. They don't know. Everybody has been through that period of time where like, oh, do I just take the sliced cheese out of the wrapper? Do I eat and I spit out the plastic? This is American cheese, right? Okay, this is Kraft American cheese.
But how many people admit they don't know what they're doing, and how many people fake it till they make it?
Oh right? My God, everybody fakes it till they make it because everybody shames everybody. It's terrible.
See, and I'm the kind of, I have no problem admitting I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Like I will be the first person to be like, help, somebody else do this. If it's something I don't know when it comes to like technology, I will throw my hands up and go, Jesus, take the wheel, because I don't know what the hell I'm doing. If it's something I'm confident in, I'm gonna try and figure it out myself. And then I'm gonna get angry when people try to help because now it's personal and I have to tackle this.
Well, that's a whole other story. That's called pride.
Oh yeah.
And self-reliance, right? But you know what it's like to find yourself in a situation where you have to pretend like you know what's going on. You know it. You have to admit it. Sometimes it does happen. Just to survive a social situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I commend you for asking for help because most people don't. And most people will either pretend like they know what they're doing and mess up big time or they'll never admit it and nobody will ever know that they messed up. They're going to bury the body.
Right. Nobody will ever know. I'll sort of assess my situation. If it's something that I think I can fake it through, and if it messes up, it's not gonna matter, then I'll fake it. But if I'm like, I don't know, re-blading a chainsaw or something that I don't know how to do, and if I mess up, if I try to fake it, it could hurt somebody. I'm not going to fake my way through that. I will ask for help when I know that I need it.
Yeah. Maybe that's the key here. Maybe the key is you can fake it till you make it if the consequences aren't so dire. But yeah, if it isn't, don't do it. Just don't do it. But yeah, like in Elton's case, he's never drank before, but he's never been in a social situation I don't think he's ever even been in a social situation per se so like, how does he know how to do any of this, let alone drink? Drink a warm bag of nails on his insides. I love that one. But yeah, it does bring us back to Huck's Flashback, because we are talking about a fraternity of people whose slogan is onage, courage, and commitment. Like this well-oiled machine that is in sync. They have their different personalities, which they were very clear to point out during the flashbacks. But yes, they are together. They work in a unit as one. There are certain things that trigger Huck's flashbacks, kind of like in other episodes where like when you say something, it kind of goes back to the past, or to Huck's past, let's say in this case. When Huck was saying to Tony, when they didn't really know where to go, she said, if we're flying blind, then we're flying blind. And that triggers her first flashback, which was all the guys in her unit are saying, Malik, Malik, Malik. She's blindfolded, and she throws the dart and basically hits the target every time, blindfolded. Lance Corporal Malik. Later on, when she's at the jukebox, and she's basically trying to bring up what happened in Devil's Past, those two, Drake and Malik, Huck. Mm-hmm. She mentions Devil's Past and talking about it. Now, what's interesting about Devil's Past, that happened in Afghanistan. It was commonly referred to as Devil's Pass. This was in 2009. That's what's a little bit more interesting. We had surmised that maybe this all went down in 2008. Now, if this is the only thing that's dated 2009, and the only reference that's dated 2009, then maybe we can forgive it and just use poetic license in a weird way. This was April of 2009. So, but let me explain what that was. In Afghanistan, Marines, NATO, and Afghani troops were protecting the elections, the democratic elections of the Afghani people. They had to call in an airstrike once the civilians were cleared, 7 to 10 militants. Now, Devil's Pass itself, they had to continue following the insurgents into basically their home territory. It was the target of the start of the operation, and they were targeting 2 suspected Taliban compounds, which were raided commando style by a group of Marines dropped behind enemy lines. A second group drove in from the Marines' main base in Nazad. Their goal was to secure what Marines have been calling the Devil's Pass, a narrow passage between 2 steep hills that controls the entrance to the Nazad district. The offense follows Eastern Resolve 1, which was the Marines' initial push out of Nazad in early spring. This first move was of limited effect because U.S. troops are too thinly spread at the time to control areas they managed to claim from insurgents. Essentially what it came down to was troops were basically protecting the elections. They were very close to Taliban territory. Somebody had tipped off the Taliban about this, and they struck hard. Now, the civilians the reason why they found out that they were tipped off is that the civilians had pretty much cleared the area before the Taliban attack happened. So that's scary. What's even more scary is when they went after, to the 2 compounds, that's when they were tipped off again. The Taliban struck hard and precise instead of scattershot and throwing rockets errantly, right? So basically they got slaughtered. Civilian casualties, Marine casualties, they couldn't hold it. And so that was the big thing about Huck's conversation that she wanted to have with Drake. Even though Drake says the bottom line is you had my back, which is important, but not talking about it, this is basically reflecting Hope's conversation she wanted to have with Iris in some ways. Mm-hmm. I want to talk about this. Excuse me, I'm too busy right now. I feel so embarrassed for you, Hope. So, as she's at the jukebox, another song comes on. And it's called Didn't I by Durando. And, I just wanted to note that Drake outranks Huck by 2 points. So he's a sergeant, she's a lance corporal. Mm-hmm. It's good to note because later on we find out that she has to actually kill him to get past him. He does not give up.
I think it's worth noting that she was a sniper as well. What other position has a spotter to call directionality and win points?
From the bullseye scene, right? The blindfolded darts? Yeah. Good point.
Yes.
I'm with that. I'm with that. That's cool.
I hope we see a little bit of that training in action later.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. 10 years later. We have to also remember that it's so funny because in The Walking Dead, they had to be just there's no guns. There's no more guns left except for the Whisperers who happen to have some guns, I suppose. Right. But yeah. And I guess when you're raiding CR sites, you're going to come across some weapons and people to produce them too. Let me go into Didn't I by Durando as Jennifer Malick and Sergeant Drake are by the jukebox listening to it. So the singer starts by saying, "Didn't I treat you right now? Didn't I? Didn't I do the best I could? Didn't I? Didn't I give you everything? Didn't I? I tried my best to be a man. Didn't I? Didn't I do it, baby? Didn't I do it right? Why you want to leave me, baby? Didn't I treat you right? I bought you diamond rings, everything a woman could need. I bought you cars, clothes, a home. When things were rough for me, I kept on, and I'm back again. Didn't I? There's something wrong with you. Tell me. Bring me all your troubles, dear. You look bad. You should be glad. You're leading man. Always be glad. Sit by home and let me kiss your lovely lips. Didn't I do it, baby? Didn't I do it right? Why you want to leave me, baby? I said, didn't I treat you right? It's a mystery to me that you won't talk to me what it is that I've done to make me. That you won't talk to me what it is that I've done to make me. So it's interesting. Drake is maybe almost saying this to her. Didn't I give you everything? Didn't we get each other's backs? Didn't I? I know Nisa's laughing, but... But and only by the end of the song when she's leaving him that he goes, why won't you talk to me? Huh? What? Because you didn't want to talk to me when I wanted to talk to you. But maybe this is also Elton, Didn't I give you everything? I told you about my mom. I gave you my mom's manuscript. Why are you rejecting me? Aww. I know, right? He just doesn't understand. Didn't I give you everything? Yeah, and he's just poor baby. Yeah, it's true. It's true. Didn't I give you diamond rings? Everything a woman could need? Cars, clothes, a home? When things were rough for me, I kept on, and I'm back again. Yeah, keeps coming back. Yep. One of Huck's flashbacks, they mention the possibility of having to kill friendlies, right? Mm-hmm. Their first mission was actually to get some of the civilians back, put them in holding just to keep them safe. And they get back, and then one of the orders was like, okay, we may have to kill civilians as well. And we're just getting confirmation from CENTCOM. But one of the things was that, the acknowledgement that a Marine gives to their commanding officer is kill. So if you ever thought this was a little confusing, now you know. Marines, the word kill is to acknowledge. It's like yes, it's like hell yes. it's literally acknowledgement. It can also even mean hello. So kill, like, hey, what's up, kill? What's up, B, kill? That sort of thing. It's a very common thing. Like, they do have their own lingo in some ways. Just like talk about fraternity, right? Mm-hmm. So, and so when you see that scene, don't think of it as kill, like as in they're going to kill people. Like, that's what they're all about. One of the things they say when they are trying to rescue civilians initially, Beer Farts Owens says something that Kirkman was trolling people with how the zombie apocalypse came about. I want to emphasize troll, because if we don't say that, then people are going to think that's it. But it is a troll, but the show is acknowledging the troll with Beer Farts Owens saying, I heard it came back on a rocket, that it started in space. Somebody breathed it in, it turned their stomachs, and then they got on a plane. Flight 462, another title, Fear the Walking Dead. Beer Farts Owens called it. Yep. Facts. It's all facts. But we have to kind of acknowledge that, like Flight 462. I mean, you could also transpose it onto The Night the Sky Fell, but I don't think that's it. I really do think it's Flight 462 that people are talking about.
Well, we even kind of tied the Flight 462 into The Night the Sky Fell too. I mean,
in some ways, yeah. I mean, happening all over the country, basically. Yeah. Switching to body temp, and this brought me right back to Fear the Walking Dead season 5 with our clip called "Our Predator Dreams Were Dashed."
Yes. Yeah.
What are they seeing?
Thermal imaging. Right. Yeah.
So this maybe confirms, I don't know, that you can see cold, I guess. So maybe we're not that dumb, Rachel, who pointed out quickly that, you can only see heat temperatures.
Right.
So maybe we're not that dumb, and maybe the CRM are actually seeing both heat and cold as they show different gradients. Like neutral seems to be green, and people who are warmer than, environmental temperatures will show up as red or orange. So I feel better about myself. How about you, everybody? I feel that we're okay. Yeah. I'm done. I feel much better.
I thought that was genius. It was great. And I also noted that it was Huck who figured out to kill the brain. She's like, shoot him in the head. That seems to work.
Right, before the thermal. But Drake was the one to figure out the thermal and snapped it on her head, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I thought that was cool.
Yeah, these was like, like fucking finally.
Yeah.
Hucking finally. Not as funny as everybody else thought. Okay, that's fine.
Well, I would definitely.
So CENTCOM finally gives the orders to eliminate all. Now, one thing to note about CENTCOM, Central Command. I say CENTCOM because it's never said on the show, obviously. So now I have to explain Central Command. This was originally President Carter's rapid deploy force out in the Middle East and North Africa, basically. CENTCOM is not something that is deployed on U.S. soil, just to be clear, which is very weird that Central Command is actually in charge of something that's on U.S. soil operations. In fact, it is illegal for the military to operate on U.S. soil, short of the Insurrection Act. But still, even that is is frowned upon. There's a specific treaty that says the military shall not be deployed on U.S. soil. No, but see, that's the thing, Nisa. When we covered the previous episode of Walking Dead World Beyond, one of the things that we mentioned was we had a separate force for that. We not only had the National Guard, but we had the Civil Defense as well. But we didn't know that the Dead Rising would necessitate the needs for us to violate our own principles too. So, but the point that I'm trying to make is that this does lend credence to a power struggle between, and what Althea points out, is the military and the National Guard. And then what we said as part of that episode was that the Civil Defense may just have swooped in and create the Civic Republic. And then mentioning the Sunset Protocols, which is not an official term that you could find anywhere on the internet, by the way, unless it's some sort of deep state conspiracy that Matt Negretti has information on for some reason, or maybe Gimple. it's not mentioned in a horror movie. It's not mentioned in any real U.S. operations. It's just, you can figure it out from the name. Yeah. Sunset protocols. Lives on our Earth are coming to a close. They're sunsetting. Yes, we are the endlings, or they are the endlings, however you want to picture it.
Lights out. That's how I took it.
Yeah, lights out protocol. What's interesting about the coinciding of the acknowledgement of those orders, confirming their task, is it coincides with Walter's leg bite spreading throughout his body. Part of why they have to do that is to prevent the spread, which Owens freaks out about, obviously, and saying, we have to get rid of, we have to stop this from spreading. That's the only thing left. What if these people in the cages are infected, etc.? So there is some symbiosis in that.
And at that point, nobody knew how the infection was being spread either. You know what I mean? Nobody knew that it was through bite or a scratch or anything like that. So
right, exactly.
I mean, look at what's going on in the world right now. I mean, with the pandemic that we're in, I mean, nobody really knows anything either. So
oh my God.
I mean, could you imagine if the military just started killing everybody that was showing COVID symptoms?
God, there have been incidences where people hurt others because of COVID and all that stuff, and it's just heartbreaking. People are that scared. Well, at least in the beginning, at least, and maybe even recently. Who knows?
This is that mob mentality that you're so scared of too, right? I mean, you put this idea in people's heads and they run with it, and now everybody's having the same thought, and they're all just trying to protect their own ass, right?
Yeah, which is weird also because it's almost as if CENTCOM makes it so that the Marines fall apart because, like you said, mob mentality. It almost enables them to have mob mentality. We're all afraid. Now we've been given the orders, which is exactly what we need to validate those mob mentality feelings or inclinations, right? Because you see Owens going, we got to take them off the board, we got to stop the spread, and it's weird, right? And so, in a weird way, they're almost violating their own principles as Marines. First of all, CENTCOM should not be giving orders on U.S. soil. That's one. But again, going back to the Marines, CENTCOM, those words are God, which is true when you're out in Afghanistan, but not on U.S. soil. Because I was trying to figure out how Huck has an in to do what she does by the end of it, because how can she see herself any other way? But then when I think of Owens freaking out, that in itself is a person who is not upholding their core values as a Marine. I'm going to go through them right now because a Marine's core values and mission is honor, courage, and commitment. Now, explaining each one, honor, it's the base of a Marine's character. It is the quality that empowers Marines to exemplify the ultimate in ethical and moral behavior, to never lie, cheat, or steal. Okay, so we got some problems there. To abide by an uncompromising code of integrity. Okay, we're back on track. To respect human dignity, and to have respect and concern for each other. Now, this is where things start to get clearer and less hazier, because all of this has to do with the safety, integrity of people. So, within the context of human integrity, meaning alive, intact, it represents the maturity, dedication, trust, and dependability that commit Marines to act responsibly, be accountable for their actions, fulfill their obligations, and hold others accountable for their actions. Mm-hmm. This is a big bomb on the way the Marines act in this moment. There will be a wrench. Courage, the heart of a Marine's core values. Courage is the mental, moral, and physical strength ingrained in Marines that sees them through the challenges of combat and mastery of fear, and to do what's right, to adhere to a higher standard of personal conduct, to lead by example, and to make tough decisions under stress and pressure. It is the inner strength that enables a Marine to take that extra step. So there is wiggle room, that higher calling, that higher example of personal conduct, a higher standard of personal conduct. So a Marine can maybe countermand an order sometimes if it adheres to the Marine's core principles. I can't imagine that happening because of the next step, commitment. This is the spirit of determination and dedication within members of a force of arms that leads professionalism and mastery of the art of war. It promotes the highest order of discipline for unit and self, and is the ingredient that instills dedication to cause and country 24 hours a day, pride, concern for others, and an unrelenting determination to achieve a standard of excellence in every endeavor. Maybe not then. Commitment is the value that establishes the Marine as the warrior and citizen others strive to emulate. So to be the example for others to emulate. And so it's kind of like this weird, Semper Fidelis. So Semper Fi, Right. And also corps d'esprit, so like the spirit of the body, like the body's energy. This is why they're called the Marine Corps. The corps in French means body. So like, Army Corps, Marine Corps. Corps just means in French body. So you are a body. You are all pieces of a individual body that are working in unison. So what's interesting about the last point is that it acts as both a bomb dropped on all of Huck's actions, but then it turns it around by the end when it says the unrelenting determination to achieve a standard of excellence in every endeavor. Commitment is the value that establishes the Marine as the warrior and citizen others strive to emulate. So this is the thing. If you are not doing it for people, to keep people safe, and you are doing it for yourself, then what are you doing it for? Mm-hmm. If you are keeping secrets for yourself, what are you doing it for, essentially?
Yep.
And this is the thing. This is what gets Huck to kind of turn it around. But I want to hit on a point. This is something that Drake says to Malik, to Lance Corporal Malik. And he says, I'm a Marine.
Doesn't he say, I don't know what you are?
I don't know what the hell you are, right?
Yeah. Honestly, I think in that moment she's more Marine, right? I mean... In most respects, yes. Right. She's actually doing the thing that Marines are supposed to do, protect the people, not themselves.
Right. To protect the interests of which is protecting our home country against foreign invasion, to protect those interests out in the Middle East, let's say, or in North Africa. She makes it just to give everybody the context, though. Jennifer makes the choice to shut out the lights and shoot her fellow officers, even Sergeant Drake, her superior. And part of that is in defense of these innocent civilians who are safe behind cages, even though Owens says they could all be infected. We don't know. We have to stop the spread. Meanwhile, Owens has blood spattered all over his face.
And what's especially funny about that, we know everyone's already infected.
Yeah. So he's not wrong. He's not wrong.
He's not wrong.
We're all potentially spreaders, super spreaders. Right. Who knows?
So I didn't even notice this until my second watch. But the civilians that are behind that cage, the very first time I watched it, I thought I saw some walkers in there, like tearing at people. The very first time, because it was. I know. But then obviously the second watch, I was like, no, those are people like hiding and shielding themselves, like they're trying to duck, not attacking other people.
Duck and cover, yeah.
It took me a minute to realize there weren't actually any walkers in there. There was 100% alive, healthy
human
civilians. Cattle. Yeah. But if there were walkers in there, I would have been on the side of the military and said, yeah, everyone in there probably is gonna die now. But that was not the case. Yeah,
well, it would have made it easier, and we wouldn't have had the conflict with Ms. Malik, Lance Corporal. Right. One thing that is interesting is that, first of all, yes, Sergeant Drake says, I'm a Marine, I don't know what the hell you are. Earlier on in the episode, Felix says to Huck, that's right, you were once a Marine, which is something you never say to a Marine, a non-active service Marine. Once a Marine, always a Marine. I am a Marine. Even in death, a Marine is still a Marine, but in a different uniform. That's what they say. I found that fascinating. It's very rare that somebody denigrates. Even people who may have retired from the Marines, even people who may have even been disgraced. An officer recognizes the fact that even when a Marine disgraces themselves, it is not easy to become a Marine. It is not easy to maintain that discipline. Even if they lose that discipline, they still went through it with their brothers. So even when you are disgraced, it is very rare, unless you're being politically minded, which does happen and has happened recently, where you disgrace a Marine. And this is the thing that bothered me about. There was a Marine that worked in a certain administration that the press was more than willing to denigrate and say, you are not a Marine. And this is one of the few things that made me start thinking differently about how we ought to see the world. And who's lying to whom and for what. And so I will not say anything further, but when somebody says, now I know for sure, this is confirming my suspicions that when you call somebody a traitor, if you're so willing and eager to call a Marine a traitor to their nation and say that they're not a Marine, you don't understand what it means to be a Marine. And this is what, in some respects, turns people off. So maybe I will allow this to stay in, because sometimes you just have to call out bad behavior. Even though I've never served, I have the luxury of being able to stand on this side of where Marines are, protecting us. And I have to acknowledge that. And I have to also acknowledge I will never understand what it means to be a Marine or to become a Marine, to have that discipline, honor, and courage and commitment, So I just have to stand here and just recognize that and for what it is. I will never know, and hopefully that's what they want. they don't want me to have to know. They keep the monsters at bay, so I will never have to know, which is why I will never be crazy and say, oh, that person is not a Marine. He's no longer a Marine. You can't say that. Even a Marine, in some respects, can't say that if they know it's what, and they never would. A lot of what's going on here is also simultaneously telling us a little bit more of how things started to go bad in the state of Denmark, but also what it means to do what's right, and in that sense of honor, in that sphere of honor, commitment, and courage that we don't have. And how hard that must have been for Huck to actually make that decision for herself, too.
Yeah.
And shooting the one person I think we alluded to is the person that she actually loves in service of this ideal, which actually even more convinces me of Huck's actions, how righteous they were, right?
Yeah.
Think about that.
I think, and she recognizes that too, and she doesn't want to forget, which is why she scars herself.
With his scar, right. Yeah, that's actually a good thing. It's a good thing to hit on, too, because we assume that scar was from something dastardly that had been done to her, but she had done it to herself. Mm-hmm. Now, this does bring us back to the repeated conversation that we often have about hope and her being a psycho. And does that make you change your mind a little bit?
Well, no. Hope is still a teenager, and I think all teenagers are psychopaths.
Okay. So by default, you're right. It's like...
Do I think she'll always be a psychopath? I'm starting to see her kind of coming around to owning her actions, not necessarily justifying them, but just acknowledging what happened. Now, this is the second time, maybe even more, correct me if I'm wrong, where Hope is telling the story of what happened, and she says the gun went off.
Yeah, that's right.
She does say, I killed someone, but she doesn't say,
right.
I shot her. Again, the gun just went off.
Right. Even before she even says the gun went off for the first time, I even said, it looked as though something startled her and the gun went off. Then she says it, which confirms what I thought, which means she's acknowledging some semblance of reality, but still takes responsibility, which I think is cool, taking further responsibility. And this is why I attributed from the beginning her taking of the bead was her reminder of the value of human life, or what can happen in an instant. And it does sort of get confirmed when Huck translates why she did what she did. When Huck explains that, yes, sometimes, you do this because you're a good person, something you wear every day to remember the bad you've done, a reminder to keep living to do good, because that's the only way to make the bad mean something, like Huck's scar, Drake's scar. And funny how she had to murder her love, let's say, or her close officer, commanding officer, close friend, right? Obviously close friend, at least. Her Daryl, one could say. Sure. Like, I understood that right away. Like, this idea of the bead, why would you do that? Why would you keep that kind of reminder? Like, to remind myself that I've got to make it count for something, even though Hope doesn't really do that. Like in her childhood.
I was just going to say, do you really think a 6-year-old has that kind of thought, that kind of rational thought? What would a 6-year-old pick up that bead for? What would be the reason a child would pick that up? A 6-year-old doesn't think, oh, I need to remember what, I need to grow from that. No, 6-year-olds don't think like that.
Yeah, no, and maybe you're right. But the choice
she may have
to pick
held
it up
on to it long as a reminder, but
right, maybe it changes over time. And you're right. Picking it up might mean a variety of things. Keeping it is a whole other, right? Yes. Like, you have the option of throwing it out any point.
Anytime.
But you keep it because you're wondering. That's the thing that defines the right. Well, like what the therapist says, it's the thing that defines the rest of your entire life thus far. The thing that one moment that sends you off in a certain direction and keeps you on the direction for however long you keep it, or remember that loss or that moment in your trauma. And it could become different things over time too. And maybe Huck is right, though. Like, maybe she sees that scar differently later on, and maybe she finds a way to be able to talk finally to somebody who is able to listen and understand her position. You can already see that it's helping too. Them talking to each other. Hope already willing to forgive Amelia Ortiz for killing her mom. I thought that was a big thing that they quickly brushed over because they don't want people to have healing just yet.
They did really brush over that very quickly, and I thought that was pretty pretty important. It deserved a little bit more time spent there. Definitely. I mean, Hope coming to the realization that, she kind of touched on it last episode, right? When she's talking to Elton, or is she talking? I don't know. She realizes that Amelia was just as good and present of a parent as Leo was, and she touched on that last episode. And I think she's drilling down on it even more in this moment, right? Like, she was just as scared as we were. Like, we were both terrified, and it just happened. This thing happened. So I mean, I think her forgiving Amelia, that was a big deal.
Pretty big thing. I mean, it could likely mean that she puts even more guilt and horribleness on herself. I mean, oh, my mom was great. Amelia was great. I'm just a piece of shit. But Huck saying that, like, you carrying this thing because it's a reminder that the bad has to mean something, that the good we do has to justify the bad that we did, that might be something that carries her forward. I don't know how far, because I don't know. I don't think Huck is over everything that's going on with herself too. Obviously.
I don't think she's over it. And let's be honest. Huck's situation is definitely different than Hope. I mean, Huck saved like a dozen or more people. Hope was just a child who shot a pregnant woman. Like, where was the good in that?
I wonder though, but that's the thing. Like, this is the question I wanted to ask next, because what is the good of Huck? And this, again, just like I don't understand what it must be like to be a Marine, right? Or to have PTSD. So I'm acknowledging that before I ask this question, but what good is it to hold on to this secret, Huck, right? To not be able to tell people what you went through and what you had to do the night the sky fell for you.
Yeah.
Right? What good does it do at all?
Yeah, I don't see the benefit of holding that secret in. But what I'm more interested about is what happened right after that. I mean, she had to take these civilians someplace and then explain what happened to the rest of her team.
In Middleton, New York.
Yeah.
That is a story for a different time, obviously, right? Because we don't know. That's what I wrote in question marks, ferrying them to safety, question mark. I didn't know, because listen, it might not have worked out the way she had thought it would with her saving these people. And so what was it for? Killing all her friends for nothing. Essentially. I mean, right reasons, but wrong outcome, right?
Right. What if they walk through that door and there's a herd in front of them? And she's the only one anyway.
she's the only one in body armor.
Right, so she's the only one that survives.
Which would be very sad. Very, very, very sad. We acknowledge the fact that they, not only did they retrieve fuel from the facility, they retrieved some logbooks in code. Yeah. Which I wasn't able to actually see. They seem to be like binary, but it was actually different numbers, not just ones and zeros. So
okay.
It could mean a whole bunch of things. And it will also, I was trying to see if it was in hexadecimal. If it was, I could actually translate, but I couldn't really make out anything.
I think the first thing I would do is lay one of those, sheets, those colored sheets over the pages. Just, see if something happened.
I know. I don't think it's not a map though.
No, I know, but you don't know. What if there's missing stuff? I didn't.
What if there's floating stuff? Yeah.
Well, no,
maybe you're right.
Over there, and then there's parts of letters that appear under different colors.
Oh, you know what? Maybe it's just the idea of colored. Maybe the numbers are all random, and just like you said, it might be just if you shine a UV light on it, it's like a misdirect, like sleight of hand. Like you just shine a UV light, and there's a whole bunch of other shit going on these pages.
Right, like what you actually see means nothing, and the real messages are invisible. Yeah,
like invisible ink or heat activated ink or something like that, or acid. Remember that acid trick, lemon juice?
Yeah, or like I've seen other things with like bodily fluids, like if you spit on it or blood, like rub blood on it.
Really? Oh well, that must be more of an occulty movie.
Probably.
We didn't do. We didn't go through the number one glaring thing throughout this episode, Mountain Dew. Oh
yeah, right.
Now, just so everybody knows, The Walking Dead did something similar in their earlier seasons when it came to the Hyundai. They had a bunch of these Hyundais throughout their episodes, clearly marked for, I have to guess, advertising purposes and stuff like that, just to kind of blare. Yeah, the only car to survive the apocalypse, the Hyundai Elantra hatchback. Like
as soon as I saw the Mountain Dew, I went, oh, they got a new sponsor.
Exactly. From the old old-timey old advertisements, those old signs for Mountain Dew. Yeah. Do you remember, do you know what what the sign says?
Drink Mountain Dew. It'll tickle your innards.
It'll tickle your innards. Because it's like the whole idea of the hillbilly with the jug of whatever. It must be Mountain Dew, right? Yeah. The Yahoo.
I like that it says it'll tickle your innards. The first thing I thought of was Walkers.
Exactly. And the reference to it turns your stomach that Owen says in the prequel too. I thought that was kind of interesting too. Mountain Dew will do it for you. That's another one, by the way.
Oh my gosh. I appreciated the attention to detail when Huck and Felix are actually drinking the Mountain Dew, and it looks like flat ass soda, right?
Which is another note that Sharon you mentioned. She's like, that has to be flat. It has to be flat.
And it looks like it too. I mean, there's no, when they open it, there's no bubbles. I mean, it looks like a flat soda. Did you hear Huck tell Felix she was keeping them in the river? So they were at least cold. They should have at least been cold.
I thought that was kind of cool too. Other little slogans. Mountain Dew is good. Mountain Dew will do it for you. Most of it is it'll tickle your innards. It must have been for a long time until they came out with Do the Dew. Which does fall in line with the kind of hillbilly, oh my god, there's a vintage commercial too, which I probably can't put on.
We'll get in trouble. Part
of the reason why Jennifer is the fair queen is because of Guinevere. Jennifer is a, obviously, update to the original Guinevere. And Nisa mentioned this to me last night in a voice message. Sharon mentions this in her notes, but Guinevere is literally Jennifer. The Fair Queen, obviously the Arthurian legends, she is the one tasked, Arthur's love of his life. She is also on the quest, just as Percival was, for the Holy Grail. This is crediting Nisa with this one. So I thought that was kind of cool. So Percy and Huck have some connection to each other, maybe?
Or Huck's gonna kill Percy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so sick of Percy. He needs to go. He needs to go.
I want to know more. I'm sorry. I kind of want to dig deeper into this. Guinevere was King Arthur's wife, who fell in love with Arthur's closest friend, and also most valiant knight, Lancelot, who held a seat at the Round Table with Sir Percival. The rift between Arthur and Lancelot led to both of their deaths and the end of Camelot. So this little love triangle. So, wow.
Ended an empire?
It ended a, kingdom, basically.
Bitches, man. Bitches.
Yeah. Bitches get stitches. What? No, bros before... Hence the term bros before hoes came about.
Otherwise your whole kingdom falls apart.
I didn't know that was that old. Oh my god. Sharon's note says Devil's Pass. Battle, a sexy time, both.
A sexy time. That's awesome.
Huckleberry Finn reference. Huckleberry Finn. Everybody gather around. So we all know that in Huckleberry Finn, we mentioned this on Man Across the Water. She said last week that Huck and Jim cross paths with two con men who do progressively worse things until they finally ditch them. However, part of the theme of the novel is Huck trying to do right by caring about people even when they have done bad things. When he comes across the con men later on getting run out of town on a rail, tarred and feathered, he feels genuinely bad for them. So it's interesting because by the end of the episode, it may be that this is a long con, and it may be that the group has to either decide whether they want to, or whether they can, after abandoning Silas, treat these people better or worse than they did Silas. We didn't talk as much about Walter, by the way. There is one thing that we didn't explain.
Uh-oh.
And it's something that he said. He said, we took this place back.
Yeah.
I thought that was very interesting. Especially when you tie it into Huck's flashbacks, it makes you start to wonder if this facility was a military installation, and this man might be a serviceman who took back this place from whoever it was. Or it could be a refinery, and he was working in the refinery, or whatever it is, and that's all, and that's that. But it just gave me that inclination that maybe he was a serviceman too.
Yeah. I got worried for a split second when he said that, when he said, we took it back, and I'm like, oh god, there's more people in there. But then he's like, my brother turned, I had to stab him, he's in the next room, and I'm like, okay, all right, maybe it's just him and his brother then.
Just after he bit me while I was asleep. Uh-oh.
Right. Did you get that impression though, that it was just the two of them, or did you feel like it was a bigger group that came and reclaimed this area?
After it unfurled that it was he and his brother, I was just kind of like, okay, it's just him and his brother.
Just that.
Or brother in quotes. This is again going back to like the idea of servicemen. It could be his brother in arms, you know? So, and maybe she knows that. Maybe Huck knows that too.
Yeah.
And that makes me think about like everything just makes everything worse for her. The flashbacks get more hardcore.
Oh gosh. Yeah. Yeah. I like the decision that the creators are making to use these repeated names, right? I mean,
it's a good
Walter,
point too.
Isaac.
Yeah. That was also like very notable too.
Mm-hmm.
Walter and Walter. Walter, in case people don't know, Walter makes his appearance in the first episode of Fear the Walking Dead season 6. Yeah. And Walter has a brother. Okay. His name is Raleigh. Raleigh bit Walter in this episode.
Oh boy.
Wouldn't that be hilarious though? Yeah, but his nickname is Raleigh. Oh my God, the code has been cracked.
What's going to be funny is if we meet anyone in the future named Walter or Isaac, like I'm immediately going to be like, oh, see ya. You don't survive the apocalypse with those names. Sorry.
I'm so embarrassed for you that you can't survive the apocalypse.
Yeah, right. You might want to change your name.
Yeah, exactly. Give yourself a name like Ike or Wally.
I am Negan.
Ooh, that's how it starts. That's how it starts. Everybody, fuck off. Oh man, this podcast, I tell you, some days. Stop laughing, Nisa. Stop it.
She's Negan too.
No, stay in Brazil where you are Negan. You can be Negan all you want.
She's gonna change her name to Elizabeth. There you go. I'm gonna change my name to Ginny.
Hi, what? No, this is gonna be very compromising for me. Just kidding. Ow! I just hurt myself with my own wedding ring, as I should. Anyway.
How about Carol? I'll be Carol. There we go.
That's safe for me. I feel safe as long as I'm nowhere near you. Yeah, exactly. Right. I think I'm on your good side, right? We'll see. Anyway. Nisa's her last name is Strand. Nisa Strand. Yeah, yep. Oh God! If I see that in your social media, that would be great. All right. Well, in any case, enjoy what we've laid out for you. Hopefully, you've got something out of this. I appreciate your listening to us, and if you really want to help us out, actually, and give us some feedback, you can leave a comment on this video or rate our podcast at ratethispodcast.com/squawkingdead. 5 stars in the eggplant tell us everything we need to know that you love us. But if you want to give us some more critiques, comments, tell everybody what they're in for, feel free. And also, if you really, really like us and want to follow our journey and be a part of this show, head over to ko-fi.com/squawkingdead. Now, you can just follow us there, which means you'll be in the know for the next time we're recording, we drop an unedited episode recording, or more. Or, if you'd like to be further involved and be in the chat like Nisa and Sharondy were, you can buy us a coffee. Now, one coffee gives you 30 days of access to our unedited episode recordings and the ability to join us in our recording sessions. If you subscribe to a coffee a month, the party just keeps on rolling. Your choice. Now, regardless of whether or not you buy us a coffee, until November 22nd, Talking Dead has decided to air their episodes behind the AMC Plus paywall. That means we're going to be giving you our unedited episode recordings for free in advance of our edited recordings that we play on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Periscope, Twitch, and in your podcast players. So why don't you get early access to these episodes, get the uncut version, the pre-show, the post-show, anything in between. You can download them, play them at your convenience, and you can get them for free the moment they're released. Just follow us on coffee.com/squawkingdead, set up an account on ko-fi.com, and then you'll know. Thank you for joining us, and I hope you got something out of this, and we'll see you in the next one, episode 114, which will be covering Fear the Walking Dead's 6th episode, Burying Her Next to Jasper's Leg.
I don't know if I have more questions about who she is or who Jasper was, and why there's only a leg left.
Enjoy, take care, and we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Take care.